Welcome and thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Laura Anthony, and I'm a clinical and developmental psychologist at Children's and also a professor at CU in the School of Medicine. We know that all of you, and also I'll speak for myself, me, are busy, maybe sometimes feeling stressed. And it's really wonderful that you have all made a point to prioritize your family's resilience and mental health. It's really good to do these kinds of things, like prioritizing your family's resilience, because it's nice to focus on the positive and build trusting relationships so that when something goes wrong or you have a problem, as all families do have problems sometimes, then you're ready to face it together. Okay, before I share the agenda and start with the good stuff, we have a few housekeeping things. This is our legal disclaimer. I'm not going to read it to you. You can take a minute and review that. I think you saw in the chat or on the screen when you signed in, we are recording this town hall and we hope to share it once it's available and we get it all cleaned up. So if you don't want your name to appear, although I'm not sure when we can see you anyway, but you have directions there in the chat to change your name or your phone number to something else. And you are all muted. If you have any questions or comments, then please put them in the chat. And at the end, we will have a Q&A. But you can go ahead and put them in now, and we will get to them at the end. And the introductions are those. That's me, I'm done. We are going to have three presenters, and I'll introduce them as we go, and then a Q&A, and you can ask us anything, and also a real quick wrap up at the end. All right, looking forward to this. So now the really good part, we have Dr. Morford, who's going to talk to us about parent distress tolerance.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm really glad you guys are here. This is one of my all-time favorite topics. I believe it's pretty much the key to the universe. So I'm really excited that I get to talk to you about it a little bit tonight. So let's dive into it. What is distress tolerance? It is the ability to persist despite being uncomfortable. That's what it is. So it's this idea that life can be really difficult, and it's important to the human condition to be able to be uncomfortable and to continue living in spite of experiencing unwanted emotions. And so I like to think about distress tolerance is kind of all about being able to stand in the storm of your emotions rather than running away from the discomfort or avoiding discomfort. As human beings, we are naturally built to avoid uncomfortable feelings. It's actually an evolutionary response to stress. So we actually have to learn this skill and recognize that, man, even though emotions are very, very real and they can be extremely uncomfortable, emotions can't actually harm you. And learning to persist in life despite having these strong, unwanted, or undesirable emotions is a really powerful tool. And that is what it is. Oh, Ellie, if you could go back just one more. Thanks so much. I appreciate you. Distress tolerance is a tool. It's a really powerful skill. And as humans, we have to kind of learn this ability to tolerate discomfort. And it's a really important skill to learn for many different areas of life, whether it is, dealing with conflict in relationships or sticking it out at your job when things are really hard, giving public presentations. And so I think it's important in a lot of different areas to really develop this skill. As a caregiver, you are faced with a lot of situations when you're providing care for your kids. Um, and these situations can cause some unwanted emotional states, and you got to persist in providing care for that child, even though you feel really upset. So why are we talking about distress tolerance at a or a meeting on caregivers? So for starters, compared to non-caregivers, we see that caregivers face a lot more emotional situations, and so your ability to self-regulate and manage stress is often taxed more than non-caregivers. And so, if we think about it, caregivers are constantly having to care for not only themselves, but also their children. And this can be really overwhelming at times. And so, y'all need support too, right? When I'm working with parents and caregivers, we talk about how important it is for them to also be mindful of their stress levels and their coping strategies. We talk about when you fly in a plane and you have the safety briefing, they always talk about putting on your mask before helping others. It's the same idea. Um, Caregivers are often very selfless. And so we see that caregivers are pushing themselves often to be the perfect caregiver and kind of at the expense of their own mental health. So we think it's very important to talk about this for y'all. Um, Caregivers also model emotional development for their kids. So your kids are learning these emotion regulation skills from those around them, especially their caregivers. And this last point, I think, is really, really important that even though, of course, we are treating children here at Children's Hospital Colorado, really only a fraction of outpatient treatment is done in the therapy office. And we just rely on caregivers so much to be the experts on their children. We collaborate closely with caregivers to really practice a lot of the therapy work at home. And of course, asking you to practice these skills with your kids can often bring about a great deal of stress. And so therefore it requires quite a bit of distress tolerance on the part of the caregiver. All right. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to talk about all of the strategies possible for increasing your distress tolerance, but I do want to give you some tangible skills that you can walk away from this presentation with. So strategies are not a one size fits all. What works for one person may not work for another person. So try out strategies, see what works for you, practice them. Um, yeah, that's my disclaimer. So this first one of identifying high risk times and triggers, I like to have caregivers start by identifying maybe times of day, times of the week that are likely to be higher points of stress. Things like trying to get out the door on time to get to school, or right before bedtime. Maybe it's during homework, maybe it's when family comes to visit. So we kind of identify those, and then I ask caregivers to really look at what specific behaviors that their child does that causes them the most distress. And during this time, it's really important to be honest with yourself, because once you've identified these periods of higher risk times, my advice is to really be mindful of engaging in your distress tolerance strategies more so during these heightened moments of stress. So it can be kind of a nice reflective exercise for parents and caregivers. Uh, this change in temperature, this is my go-to tangible strategy that I'm going to give you all tonight. It is about getting some cold onto your body. This actually activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which then helps us to calm down when we're experiencing really intense emotions. Practically, what does this look like? So I encourage families to get some of those really flexible ice packs, kind of the squishy ones, and keep a couple of those just in your freezer at all times. And then when you're feeling really distressed, this can be you're feeling really anxious, really angry, maybe panicky. Take the ice pack out of the freezer. If you can tolerate it, place it over your eyes with a little bit of pressure. Sometimes that can be a little too intense for people. So the next place I recommend is at the back of your neck, works really well. And you're going to leave it on there until you can kind of feel yourself coming down from that intense emotional state. So, what if you are not home though, and you do not have access to your handy dandy uh, freezer? So, any change in temperature is kind of what we're looking for. The ice pack works really, really well. But if you are out of the house at work, or maybe you're at a friend's house or something, we can get kind of creative. So, just running your wrists under some really, as cold water as you can do, splashing your face with cold water, um, even just even just open up a window during the winter, like breathe in some really cold air. I've had families just in because we live in Colorado and have some uh, cold seasons, having people just open up their jackets when they're outside to just kind of get some of that cold airflow. The whole point is we got to get that change in temperature to really trigger that parasympathetic nervous system response and calm down that emotional state. Um, Last thing I'll say about this is that it actually does work really well with kids too. You can teach your kids to do this. Talk to them about it before you start, right? So don't just go slapping on an ice pack when your kid is escalated, but talk to them about this. Talk to them about what the purpose of the ice pack or of the cool down strategy is. Um, the whole purpose is to just help them calm their bodies down. So I really recommend having you practice this with them before they actually are escalated. So uh, talk to them. We're going to try this new thing, and it's really to help you calm your body down when you're having difficulty with that. So let's try it out. Let's pretend that you're feeling really upset, really angry, really anxious. All right, I'm going to go get the ice pack out of the freezer and we're going to put it on your eyes or the back of your neck, or we're going to run your wrists under cold water. What's that like? Right? Get them kind of curious about what that experience is like, but it just prepares them a little bit ahead of time before they kind of have a shock to their system of something really cold. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. Okay, now we are going to transition to um, still same sort of topic, but recognizing that caregivers and kids affect each other and that we need to find ways to help them both. Dr. Holzman?
Thank you. I'm Jake Holzman. I'm a child psychologist, clinical psychologist, and professor at CU Anschutz. I have had a career working in outpatient mental health services that spanned working with kids to working with adults and trauma and anxiety, working back with kids, working with young kids, and now I've kind of found my way to be working primarily with younger kids and their families and finding ways to support the whole system. I also I'm a father to a fierce 2-year-old and have found that that's actually probably helped me the most in really doing the work I do. And I'm fairly okay with sharing some of the examples and some of the things I'll talk about tonight. So if we can go to the next part. Kind of the whole idea of this is just to validate that parenting can be so stressful. This figure here comes from one of the earliest papers explaining why is parenting so stressful. And when you look at this figure and the arrows, it's overwhelming itself. It's really kind of saying that almost everything in life can get to be affecting parenting, our histories, who we are, our relationships, work, our social network, just all the bubbles we exist in. And it's almost like being in a pinball machine and kind of just like getting bounced around to all the different parts of life and feels a little bit out of control. Now, if we just narrow in, the whole point of this red box is just thinking through all of these things are affecting parenting stress and our well-being. and we really think in the actual parenting itself when working with kids, that can create stressors in and of itself. So if we can go to the next part, what we really know is that parents and kids affect each other. It's the parenting stress and mental health concerns go together often with families and kids. Um, and what this study did, this study kind of observed, followed kids, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds for years at a time to really see what was happening between parents and kids and their mental health concerns. And what we really found from this study is they're both affecting each other. It's not one versus the other. It's not one. It's really bidirectional. And this was, I think, another point. What I've really learned in the work I focus in is how early some of these patterns can start, and that also doesn't mean that it also means that we can work to help early too. This is coming with 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds. If we go to the next one, this is looking at the first year of life, and that these kinds of patterns where I can speak to when kids are colicky or kids are, infants are pretty upset, hard to sleep, frustrated, screaming, yelling. There's no way in the world that feels good. And that's really stressful for parents. And so this same kind of, if we go to the next figure, it'll show how when kids have different levels of negative emotions, they might be more stressed out even early in infancy. That can amplify how stressed parents are, which can amplify kids. And it's just really to communicate that we're all existing in a system together and affect each other. It's not just one or the other. Why don't we go to the next one? In these patterns over time, what I like to this is just one example of an accidental trap that we can get stuck in as caregivers. And this is getting into more conflicts and thinking a little bit more in the externalizing, sort of angry, yelling, screaming, not listening kind of domain. There's ways this kind of cycle can also exist for more of the like internalizing, anxious, sad, down, avoiding kind of moments. I'll just focus a little bit on the conflict. And this is really getting at that a lot of times in caregiving, we're setting expectations or asking kids what to do. And if you've ever had that boss who kind of sits behind you and tells you something that you don't want to do, it's not fun and it's frustrating and can often set off your own stress reaction. Kids interact and have that experience too, and depends on how they react, where I might ignore it, I might escalate more, and sometimes we might escalate back, we might ignore, we might escalate back. On both sides of these, we might get to a point where we're either like, I'm done with it, I need to go away from this moment, or I get really loud unintentionally, I scream, I yell, I say things that I didn't mean to say, and they're all accidental. And what's tough here is when those things stop, the fits or the tantrums or the conflict, we get stuck into patterns of keeping doing them. And these kinds of patterns kind of exist over time where this relief part to it can keep them going. Now, another thing I want to show, if we go to the next part, is that when parents often come to seek services in a clinic or in their pediatrician's or office or anywhere where they're going to kind of get help for their kids' mental health concerns, we know right off the bat that 40% of parents tend to think that I'm at fault for this. Maybe it's bad parenting, I missed the signs, I passed on genes. The only reason I want to show this is to say that a lot of families are saying this and experiencing this. And it is really stressful to have moments of self-blame. And one of the kinds of ways that what we do oftentimes in the first moments in our interventions in the clinic settings is to try and find ways to step out of this moment. I like how Dr. Anthony started off talking a little bit about focusing on the positive, because when we're here noticing these stressors that are like self-blaming, it really kind of narrows in on the conflict that's going on. If we go to the next one, one of these first steps that we start to take is acknowledging these stressors that are happening, these conflicts that are happening, these cycles that are happening, and also really trying to harness and find strengths in our kids, in ourselves, in the life events we've had and the things we've learned over time. I really want to emphasize, like, when you look at this picture, it's really showing when we think of the challenges that are there, we want to also find positives. And we want to also kind of expand our lens beyond just ourselves and think of all the things that could be affecting what's going on. So we can kind of step out of some of that self-blame at times and also notice what's going well to build on that, to do more of that. Okay, and the last piece I'll talk about here. If folks are having those moments where it's like I think I'm to blame, I think there's stress going on, there's conflict, there's arguments, I just think it's incredibly brave to find help that supports mental health for yourself, your kids, your family. It's a huge step. There are so many barriers that exist in our world to doing that, and I think that just coming here tonight, I love starting it too with acknowledging how important it is to take the step to come like tonight, because it's not easy to do that and to break out of those cycles. It's really brave to do that. Another part of this is that when caregivers, parents are in therapy with kids, we're actually finding that kids tend to get better too. And we're also seeing that parents' stress can change too. So I want to give some hope that it's just some ideas that joining with kids in this and being a part of the therapy experience can be really helpful. Now, another thing when seeking help, there's also oftentimes you're connecting to a clinician. There's many times where I've worked before I had my own kiddo where I was like, folks asked me if I really got it. And I think I, in some ways, did. In some ways, now I understand where I didn't get some things. And I think having some ways to connect with other parents who understand it has been really important. There's many groups out there that are parent support groups. Example of this is like the chad.org or chadd.org, where they're finding ways to connect other caregivers. A lot of services we offer in our clinics are also finding ways to connect caregivers to other caregivers to help understand and build this connection. At the bottom of this is just some quotes that we've had from folks from different groups, really speaking to the message that knowing that I wasn't the only one going through these concerns, and that's actually fairly common for many of them, is a piece of relief that's really important to have. So I wanted to share that message, and I think if we go to the next one, I think it's time to shift to our next presenter.
Hi, my name is Verenea Serrano. I'm a clinical psychologist here at Children's Hospital, Colorado. And I'll be talking about connecting to what matters while coping with what comes. And the previous two presenters sent it up really well, and I'll ground us in these two photos here. So this one on the left, I love the little child is holding his caregiver's face in his hands. And we think about sometimes when parents hold their little babies in their hands or they're hugging and holding their older children, they say, my whole world is here. And remember, as this little boy holds his parents' face in his hands, that you are your kiddo's world as well, especially when they're tiny. You are their whole world. As they get to be adolescents, you may be having to kind of fight for some space in their world, but you are still important. And this is why we have this town hall today. And so when we think about what matters, it's relationships. You all are here because being a parent, your children are important to you. And when we think about coping with what comes, we have this nice picture on the right, the sunset, and some dark clouds off to the side. We don't know if that's going to be an afternoon thunderstorm or just a kind of brief clouds. We do know that weather happens day in, day out, just as life moves forward. And so we don't always know what comes. We might have a good weather app that can predict, but sometimes it changes. And so I'll talk a bit about how to connect with what matters on a daily basis for coping and support. The next slide. When I say the word self-care, think about what comes to mind. Some people say, is it just kind of yoga or meditation? Is it just another thing I'm not doing right? And so over recent years, I've noticed sort of trends personally and professionally of self-care as another thing to do. another checkbox, another thing you're supposed to do, and then you're also supposed to relax, supposed to feel better after it. And people think, all right, one more thing not doing right. Well, when am I supposed to even find time to do this? And then if I don't feel relaxed, am I doing it right? And so this concept of self-care has come away from its origin of really caring for oneself. And as Dr. Milford mentioned before, caregivers give so much of themselves. This concept of caring for oneself and self-compassion is important, but has gotten a bad rap in some ways. And so we'll think about the next slide. Some people's life kind of feels like this, right? What game are we, if we're looking at this picture, we don't even quite know what game we're supposed to be playing. We have all the pieces. And if you think about each kind of piece here as a part of your identity, so the dice may be who you were before you were a parent. The chess pieces may be who you were before you found your partner, significant others, or other people in your important life. Maybe the Candyland pieces are other parents who also have children. Maybe the checkers are kind of friends you know from work or other ways. And so coming to parent, we know transitioning to parenthood really changes relationships, changes who you spend time with, how you spend time with them, your understanding of yourself. And some people come to say, I don't even know who I am, what I like. I don't even know what game I'm playing. Do I even have all the pieces? Some of the pieces are broken. And so when we think about how to cope, when someone says, what do you like to do for fun? Take some time for self-care. Some people feel like this. I don't even know where to start. And so we think about and move to the next slide. How do we move to what game are we playing? Do we have all the pieces? What pieces do we even need? Is it something we want to do with other people? Something we want to do on our own? And so to know what game to play, to know what to move towards in life, we have to know what matters. We have to know what matters, choose things that align with what matters, and also choose our focus. As previous presenters noted, choosing focus, thinking about what to pay attention to is sometimes a really powerful way of controlling your mind, what you're experiencing, but it can also be really hard. And so as we move to our next slide, to know what matters, we have to think about what's important. And so on this slide, you see a variety of words. Some of these may be really strong values for you. Some may be kind of in the middle. Some may be pretty low priority values. And so when we think about, we use the board game analogy, what game are we playing? Which one are we going to choose if we had the options? We have to know what's important to us. So take a second. You have to pick 3 things. Could be words on this slide. Likely ones that aren't here are also important to you. If we're going to choose what game to play, we need to know what's important. So can we pick 3? As we move to our next slide. Once we know what's important, what game we're going to be playing, we have to say, okay, well, how do we play this game? How do we move forward? And so some hindsight questions would be helpful in thinking in what ways to move. So think about your child when they are older. How would you want them to describe how you were as a parent or a caregiver? And some people may say, I want my child to say I supported them. I encouraged them. I did what I could to give them the best life. And you think, what actions move you toward that idea of that parent or caregiver? Knowing there's so many different ways to move toward that goal. Also think about yourself in a few decades. How would you want to describe yourself? Do you want to say that you were a good parent, a good partner, a good friend? You enjoyed life? What matters to you in the big picture? Because after we choose what game to play, how are we going to play it? How are we going to move towards what matters? And so we move to our next slide. We take small steps towards. So it wouldn't be a Colorado presentation if I didn't have a picture of a mountain and use an outdoor analogy. And so once we know what game we're playing, how we're playing it, then we start playing. Any small amount of time, start somewhere. So I talk with caregivers. My work is primarily with caregivers of children with medical complexity. And some of them say, I didn't choose this. This wasn't what I expected. My life is totally different. And my day is filled. Everyone's days here is filled from minute to minute. And so we talk about A magic babysitter, magic vacation's not going to fall out of the sky. And we still have to keep moving forward. The weather comes, life moves. And so where do we start? Is it 5 more minutes in the shower of just resting? Is it one more song when you arrive somewhere to just kind of enjoy it? Is it a quick text to a friend? So find somewhere. 5 minutes. Slowly, when you put a wedge of 5 minutes, it can be 10, it can be 15. And as we look about this, if we were trying to make it maybe not to the top of the mountain, but just past the hill, we need to start somewhere. We need to make some movement toward. And also notice some stuck points along the way and keep going. So if we were walking on this path and there was one plank that was up and we tripped on it, we'd be like, oh, that was a bummer, right? Didn't like it, but we wouldn't trip and just turn around. We would say, okay, we can get up and kind of keep going. Some stuck points are minor, like being stuck in traffic or, not having the thing you wanted at the grocery store, getting the last carton of eggs. And then some things are kind of big stuck points. So say we're on this path and the trail is totally gone. We might have to look and see if we can cross over the river somewhere where it's a little more shallow, decide how much we can wade into it. So as you go through life, notice those stuck points and we can focus on them. Or we can take a look and see, oh, look at the river, sounds really nice. I see these animals over here. Focusing on the river, the animals, enjoy the people you're with, the goal ahead of you. Doesn't erase those hard stuck points, but it gives you power to focus on what you're spending your energy on, what kind of channel your mind is on. And relieve the pressure from doing it right. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of pressure in self-care looking a certain way and being relaxed after. Sometimes maybe you go on this hike and it rains or it hailed on you. You didn't expect it. Maybe you got some mosquito bites along the way. There could be moments of things you enjoyed right alongside those moments that were hard. And there's no right way to do self-care. There's no right way to move towards your goal. We move to our next slide. Right here I have an example. So if we think about, imagine someone who picked their top 3 values were connection, courage, and trust. And they would say, I want my child to say that I cared about them and help them be the best person they could. I want to describe myself as a good parent, partner, friend, community member who could be counted on to support others. In the big picture, they described they wanted to live a happy life with people that they love and also wanted to be trying new things and having fun. So if we orient and kind of imagine this person, if we were to say, what would their small steps toward look like? Go to the next slide. They might send a text or a voice message to a friend, right? So that might take quick 30 seconds, 1 minute. It connects that value of connection. It's something that's pretty feasible, right? Think about how often you send an email, send a text, next time you've received one of those messages or the digital age handwritten letter, right? Those things, people receive them, usually feel positive. Share a happy memory. That could be just with yourself, could be with other important people. And when we choose what we focus on, it doesn't mean we ignore the things that are hard, but we're choosing where our focus is, where our thoughts are, what is influencing our mood, our actions. A lot of people are on social media, and we know as he was at the Capitol today talking about the bill being proposed around social media, phones in school, because we know social media can have a negative impact on people. And so when we think about if you're on social media, post a supportive comment. I'm sure many people have seen comment sections that aren't very supportive, aren't maybe embodying a lot of people's values. But if you're going to be on these, think about maybe posting something happy. If this person is wanting to be courageous, maybe try something new. There's lots of free local community events that can support connection. Courageous, and it's hard to go somewhere new, somewhere you don't know somebody. But if they're being courageous, being brave, might try something that could end up being fun. Practice daily gratitude. We know research lets us know that daily practice of regular gratitude can be associated with positive well-being. And what that can look like is I'm grateful for, I'm thankful for, I'm glad for, kind of fill in the blank. Again, you can do this while you're driving. You can do this while you're trying to go to bed. A lot of parents I talk to, we joke that everything's busy until you get to lay in bed and your mind has this reel of all the things to do, didn't do, the doubts, as Dr. Holzman had mentioned, some of the doubts people have while parenting. And so changing the channel on those thoughts, we can't just turn our thoughts off. but we might be able to change the channel, refocus them to some daily gratitude. And maybe this person, again, they wanted to try things that were fun, learn something new. That was a big picture thing in their life that was important. Start learning about something new. So instead of, if you're, waiting in line somewhere, or you have 5 minutes here or there, you could read the news, send an email, scroll on whatever app of your choosing. You could pause and say, I'm going to learn about making sourdough bread like it was 2020, or I'm going to learn about some animal I saw on my recent hike. Think about how those two things may influence your well-being. The latter, I know for me, that second part would help me to think about, I'm living in line with my values. I'm learning something new. And that was kind of healthier for my wellness than maybe reading the news or sending an email. I will do all those things another time, but I'm also taking small steps towards what matters. And so I hope for you today, this presentation can give you some thoughts of where you can start small. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. That was really, really terrific. We do have some questions, so I am, sorry, gotta get that out of the way. I'm going to read the questions, and then some of them are for specific people and some are just more general. The first question that came in was, why aren't trained parent peer support specialists used more as a resource for parents? They are a great resource for what parents are going through. I will say just briefly, and then maybe some of you could say more about this. My husband also works at Children's, and he is one of the few experts in parent peer support and has done research in it and also created tools and trainings and assessments to help parents on their journey. When we first moved here, it was a little bit difficult to do that work in Colorado because there weren't a lot of parent peer support groups. Even some of the national groups didn't have chapters here. So that has been a challenge. But now he is building a parent peer support program at Children's in our department, and I'm sure they're gonna see great things. Anybody else want to add? Okay, I agree. Super important. And I'll tell him that you asked. Okay, this one is for Dr. Morford. If we have time, what are some more distress tolerance strategies like the ICE?
Absolutely. My favorite topic. Let's talk about it. I think there's some ones that I teach that are somewhat distress tolerance. We also talk about this concept of grounding. I think mindfulness in some ways has a stigma these days, like it's been overused, but I think a part of what we're talking about is just really getting aware of kind of what is happening for you in any given moment, and then making a choice about kind of how to handle that for yourself. So that's a very broad way of talking about using mindfulness for distress tolerance. So some actual strategies that I talk to families about, if you've ever been in therapy and somebody has talked to you about locate your 5 senses, do 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell. It changes for everybody. But one of the ones that I like to use when you're feeling pretty distressed is to use colors. So you pick a color. Kids, this is one that's also you can do with your kids too and teach them, which is kind of fun. But you pick a color, any color. Let's go with yellow because that's on our slides. And then you look for everything that's yellow in the room. Count it out like really specifically. I see that I have yellow lettering on my notepad. I see that I have yellow bow on that photo over there. And just it helps to really ground you and slow some things down. I think for parents and caregivers, that's really important because often with distress tolerance, we're asking you to stand in the storm of the emotional experience, which often your kid may be having a really tough time and they're tantruming or they're asking for something repeatedly. And we're asking you to stand in that, don't run away from that experience. And sometimes you just need a moment to go, I'm going to breathe and I am going to look for the colors in this room. If you run out of things to look at in the room that are yellow, pick another color until you feel like you're through that. I think that's one that I had a lot of parents and caregivers using. I am happy to get to more of those, but I also want to make sure we have time for other comments. So if we have time, I'm happy to chat more about those.
Okay. This next one is a little bit related. So so I think any of you can answer, sorry. What would be your biggest tip for parents or caregivers who are overwhelmed? Dr. Serrano, do you want to try that one?
Yeah. I think having in the moment plus a long, kind of longer view. So as Dr. Morford mentioned, if you're overwhelmed in the moment and managing your child, we know, especially with young children, but older children too, that you regulate together, right? And so if your child's having a big tantrum, like you are also having big emotions, you helping to regulate yourself can help kind of lower the temperature on it. So in the moment when feeling overwhelmed, find the things that help. I think of it like interrupting that kind of circuitry of, okay, let's change paths. Let's take the energy down. When we think about the long term of feeling overwhelmed, I think having some pause to reflect why. What is feeling overwhelming? And how do I move in this values aligned way of what's important to me? Sometimes we can take responsibilities off our plate, but a lot of time we can't. And so maybe if you have to drive your kid to and from school and that is overwhelming because then it's late to get out the door and to get to work and to go here, but you have to drive your kid to school because they have to make it. What can we do with how driving to school work looks to make that feel less overwhelming, right? So what's the music in the car? What are the senses or scents? So like essential oil. Some people like different kind of textures. Maybe do you have a cozy blanket to keep you warm in this winter? And so we can't change it. You have to drive your kid to school, but we can drive what that experience is like to support, take down the temperature and feeling overwhelmed. And so I think reserving what can come off your plate, if any, what can look different that's on your plate, and how do you move forward in values aligned way when you got to keep moving.
Okay, thank you. This one is for Dr. Holtzman. Can you give real life examples of a real life cycle trap and any advice for those who are trapped in this cycle?
Yeah, how many do you want? Yes. I this morning, my daughter didn't really want to put on shoes. I wanted her to put on shoes because it was cold outside. I um was frustrated and kept focusing on getting the shoes on. She kept focusing on not wanting the shoes on, and we were pretty stuck together for some time. And eventually, I moved to eating chocolate muffins with her. Um, we got a little bit less stuck there. We moved to getting shoes on. Um, it took time. I'm not presenting this as like a perfect story. There was definitely a lot of like challenges there, but I think the whole points of these cycles are that these little moments can just grow and grow and grow and keep growing until we start to notice that we're kind of stuck in them and sort of trying to find ways to shift out of it. Um, yeah, that just this morning, and they happen all the time too. So I think the other thing to think through, I'll build that into what Dr. Serrano was saying in the last question is finding like kind of real, simple, feasible, easy to do ways to get less stuck in these moments. So, if rather than think I'm gonna have the best time this weekend and go to the biggest event with my family to build our relationship, like having a little bit of a moment later that we're having some fun together. And just doing that a little bit more often can help. I've found helping getting unstuck from those kinds of cycles too.
It is a really good question. I should have said at the beginning that we have 4 kids and 3 grandkids. So in addition to having this job, I also actually am more of an expert in all of these things, good and bad. I would say that there are just, Jake, to add on and maybe kind of thinking about older kids, you can do something surprising, like if your child is yelling at you and you stand up and start doing a dance if you know a dance, or jumping jacks if you don't know a dance. Another way to kind of uh, get a little bit less trapped is if instead of, because part of the trap is you're upset, right? And so if you're yelling or frustrated, and we all do it, I'm not saying don't ever yell or don't ever get frustrated because that's just not realistic. But if you are doing that, that feeds kind of that cycle, right? As Dr. Holzman showed, those circles. So another thing you can do is instead of yelling, you can whisper. And one of the kind of nice tricks about whispering is that also your child has, if you do it before they're like totally screaming, your child has to quiet also to hear you. And that's a little trick. You want to whisper something that is really positive that makes it worth it for them to listen. Like, oh, I just remembered that we have chocolate muffins. Um, Another thing you can do is use humor if you're funny, particularly directed at yourself. Directed at your child, it's just going to keep you in that cycle. But even looking at videos of pandas together, if you look at your phone and pull up a video and laugh more even than you feel like, that can sometimes also like be a surprising thing that will get kids out of the cycle and you out of the cycle.
What Dr. Anthony, I think to piggyback off that is also just pausing to acknowledge if everyone's upset, right? And you notice we're here, you can just pause and say, this conversation is not going well. I am upset. You are upset. Let's just take a time out, right? Because it says intentionally, especially if you have teens, they are very aware of your flaws as a parent, as a caregiver, right? And they're sometimes happy to let you know. Or if you are holding an expectation of them, right? Don't yell. Don't stomp out of here. You be regulated, calm down. And they don't see you doing the same thing. They think, why should I be listening? And so that pause to sometimes if you're like, I don't know what to do in the moment, or I'm so frustrated, of just calling a timeout, cooling the temperature, it lets your brain move out of that sort of fight or flight mode to thinking about something that's going to move you out of that cycle. And it lets your teen know, hey, I'm aware that I'm working on something too. Like, what could we do together to kind of move us somewhere different?
Okay. This one is also for you, Dr. Serrano. Thank you for these tips. Are there other pieces of advice that you give to parents of complex kids?
As Dr. Holzman said, how much time do we have? I am very passionate about population. I talk
7 minutes.
Yeah, not 7 hours.
Go
not
ahead.
7 hours. Yes.
Nope, but you got 7 minutes.
And so I think I talk a lot is sometimes having a child with medical complexity. I also work a lot. People have developmental differences, developmental disabilities. is it can be existential. It is if we took all your board games and threw them on the floor and you don't even know where to pick the pieces up. And so I think recognizing that existential piece, recognizing that life looks so different than you expected, and that deciding who is part of my network. I talk a lot with parents is who can you count on? And some parents tell me no one, myself. And how do we weave, right? How do we add the people, the support? Sometimes it's people. So for some people, it's spiritual religious communities. Sometimes it's people with other kids with medical complexity. Sometimes it's therapy. Sometimes it's a really great CD album that, or no one does CDs anymore, Spotify, a Spotify track that you are blasting while you're driving. It is weaving your net so strong because your life has been changed in a way you haven't expected. And we know one step forward, we need to weave a system that feels right. And so I think that advice would be is pause, reflect, think about what you may need. If you don't know what you need, think about who may help you do that, whether that's therapy, whether that is, again, people love people in your life, spiritual religious communities. Find out what's your value and find what to take small steps forward, and know that no one does it alone, especially when your life's been turned upside down. But if you haven't read the poem Welcome to Holland, which I cannot remember who the author is, but it's a lovely poem written by a mother of a child with Down syndrome. It's a really great poem, Welcome to Holland. It's a great perspective around parenting a child with medical complexity and developmental disabilities.
Okay. Wonderful. That's all the questions. So we are done with those, unless another one sneaks in really quickly in these last 4 minutes. I just want to point out that we have many mental health resources with great articles geared for parents on our website. Our website is like really it's really wonderful for that. So you can find them all by visiting www.childrenscolorado.org/mental health resources. We might have those coming up in the chat soon. There's one more question, which let me see if I can sneak it in. I can. One more question to anyone. How do you talk to kids about mental health? And this person is asking specifically about an 11-year-old with anxiety.
I'm happy to take the first look. I think there's knowledge there's going to be a lot of stigma or sensitivity and to mental health, and it can also be hard to recognize you may be having difficulties mental health. And so I think generally I work with consultation, so sometimes people aren't expecting to see a psychologist when they go to their pediatrician office, and so I might talk about how it might showing up. One question I like to ask kids, I say, all kids get in trouble. What do you get in trouble for? And they know that's what they get in trouble for. And so with anxiety, that child may know how their anxiety is showing up, right? It might be like, it's really hard for me to get to school. And so what are they noticing? And if they're experiencing a lot of anxiety, maybe impacting their way, getting in the way of doing things they like. And so we join together around going to school and this battle to getting to school, the anxiety, that doesn't feel good for anyone involved. Let's think about, right, talking to the right people, whether it's your teacher, maybe it's a pediatrician, maybe it's other trusted people in your life. How do we put our network together to make it so getting to school doesn't feel so awful? And so joining together around what do we want to improve, joining together around how do we think we want to improve that. Oftentimes therapy is a great option for a lot of people, but it's not always the first one that comes to mind. So joining together, talking with the right trusted people would be my first thought.
I'll pop in
That's
with
great.
two really quick. I think the first thing is have the conversation. A lot of times we can be worried and stay away from it. And I think there's so much evidence that having conversations about mental health is really important. I think the second tip is while you're having it, be aware of the times where you might be providing solutions instead of support. and sort of like, I'm suggesting you to do this, to manage this, do this. In some ways, kids might react of like, are you even listening to me? And if we can step back and really listen and hear what's going on, a lot of times kids will find ways to solve these issues themselves, and it really creates a cycle where kids can empower themselves too.
I would add also in a calm moment, not when your child is overwhelmed with feelings or you're overwhelmed with feelings. You might say, oh, earlier today, I was really, really worried about this thing. And sometimes I get really stuck on that and stuck on my anxiety. And I don't love it when I'm not in control of things. So you could just kind of live out loud. Um, and it's a great way to model for your child and to also feel more open in talking to you. So if you are modeling it, saying what you're feeling out loud, or saying what happened next, or even if it just continued to be a struggle and it makes you anxious talking about it, and you can kind of exaggerate things, that's not a problem. That can be really helpful to kind of keep those lines of communication open.
And I know we're at time, but just I think one brief thing is to kind of what Dr. Holzman was saying, having the conversation and not holding yourself to it has to be perfect. That goes for any of the things we've talked about. You are not expected to be perfect in how you provide care to kids. Give yourself some grace on some of these things, but have the conversation, label that you're feeling uncomfortable about how to bring this up, but you feel like it's really important, or I think modeling that it can be okay to label that you're unsure of how to go about things is really a nice way to go about it too.
And with that, I think we're done. Thank you all so much for coming, and for especially also our speakers. Thank you. That was really helpful. We appreciate you.